let's see, if you took all of your cues from the market, you could make the argument that nature is constantly at work, and that the moment one thing ends, another absolutely begins instantaneously right then and there. That nature doesn't allow time to go by ahead of her, get ahead of her. She's constantly creating new creations to put out there. Now, in the case of the markets, that new creation is itself a move that has energy and all of the expressions that we always talk about. But just to be general about it, it's just another market move comes in, and it starts immediately upon the cessation of the previous move. So if we were to extrapolate that, and I'm only playing with the idea here, I'm not saying this is how it is. I'm not authorized by the universe to speak on behalf of it, but I'm simply making observations. And my observation would be that an argument could be made that any ending is then, at the moment of that ending, a new beginning already happens, without any lapse of time. So if we consider the universe, the manifestation, the thing that you see when you wake up and open your eyes, when you see the stars, when you drive your car, whatever you do, everything that you see includes everything that's in the universe, right? Wherever you go, you see things, you hear things, you experience things. All of that is the universe. It's possible that when something ends, that for the ending, there is no time like there is in the universe. Time comes with the universe. Time is part of what you experience, but only in the universe. So the idea, as an example, that people pass away and that their spirits are floating around in a building, and listen, they very well may be floating around in a building. Maybe they do. But I think that itself is another manifestation in the universe. The real event, the ending, the cessation, the stopping of anything, puts it into a timeless place. Something, because time is part of the expression of the universe. If that person, that thing, whatever it is no longer here in the very real sense, then he may not be in time anymore. And that's why they sometimes call that eternity, right? So at that point, there's no time. The speed with which we're watching, nature come up with all of her work, which is you see everywhere, that precedes time. It's before time. All of this work somehow gets done without time, and then it's expressed through time. I don't know if I'm making myself any clearer. And it's very difficult to speak in time about something that has no time, because time is duration, and our minds are very acclimated towards duration, measurement, comparison. That's what our minds are doing most of the time. We're comparing. That's the work of the mind. But there are other levels to man, other than merely having a computer that's calculating duration, time, and so on, which is what our mind does. And I've always said, and I think you would agree, that many, many years ago, I was at a movie, and you know how men don't like to cry or see them crying, but I was at a movie and it was very emotional, but I had not quite caught the emotional part of it just yet. It didn't quite hit me, but after it did, I noticed that, I don't know if you've noticed this, but your emotions are much, much faster than your thought. So you can suddenly be taken with an emotion, and it's your mind that actually has to catch up to the emotion. Like your mind's like, hey, what's going on here, right? You're already in tears or whatever, because your emotions are much, much faster, much more depth, much more speed than any thought could provide. So I have always found that very interesting, that our emotions are so much faster than our thinking. Our minds are almost always catching up to try to figure out what has happened and why those emotions are there. But that means that you and I have an emotional center that has a much higher degree of intelligence to it. You could call it emotional intelligence. And that intelligence figures out something much faster than thought can. And then when emotions, however they really work, figure that out, they express themselves one way or the other, long before, in many cases, your thoughts could ever catch up. And finally, the mind finally does catch up and realizes, okay, I see what's happened here. But this is why it's important, I think, to take a look at your emotional center, the part of your life that isn't just merely thinking about something. Your emotions don't emote about something. They don't think like your mind thinks. Your emotions, I think, are a higher center in man. I think the mind is lower than emotion. I think emotions are higher than the mind. All of it works together. But as a specific center in man, I think the emotions are a very, very interesting. I mean, everyone has them. And the more you can delve into them and understand the nature of them, that would be a good thing to do. Otherwise, perhaps you would only be subject to running from them, or like most men do, or many men do, or the only emotions men are usually willing to show are emotions that supposedly say how strong they are. Like, hey, you're not going to mess with me, I'm going to kick your butt, right? Though that's the emotion that men, well, that's about it. That and maybe love, what love men can give, because women are the original lovers. Women are the original, source of motherly love and every other kind of love that comes out of that. Men really have limited use of their emotions, and they're running from, it's either fight or flight for men. Either they're going to fight you, or they're going to run from you, or they can give love. I hate to reduce man down to such a basic level, but in a very real way, I wish somebody would have told me upon graduation at junior high. At my junior high school graduation, I wish somebody would have, in authority, would have gotten up and said, now listen, everyone, you've graduated junior high. Everything you see in life is not going to exceed anything you've seen while you've been in junior high. Everything's going to be the same. Everyone's going to be running from telling the truth. Everyone's going to be causing other people grief. Everyone's going to be making fun of everybody. Everything you've seen in junior high, that's what you're going to see, and that's all you're going to see for the rest of your life. I wish somebody would have told me that, because that would have been exactly correct, wouldn't it? Right? You look at the world, the state of the world, you look at politics, you look at people, all of the events that go on in life, none of it has transcended junior high. And so the only chance for anybody to transcend junior high and go into these subjects that we sometimes talk about is you're going to have to do it on your own, because everyone else is just in junior high and wanting to express all of those junior high emotions. Speaking of emotions, all of those junior high thoughts, nothing ever went beyond junior high in life. And I would have loved if somebody would have just told me that when I was graduating from junior high. Hey man, listen, that's not going to get a lot better than this. Okay. If this is about it, this is how it is all going to go, Mr. Williams. So you do have to find your own way. And I know many of us are, and the more you do that work, don't you worry about what you think death is. Don't you worry about your question that, well, what's the point of doing all this because of death? Because if you don't know what death is, don't assume that because everyone else in junior high said this is what death is, that's what it is. It's probably a really good idea to forget about death and do the best you can here and continue to improve, because everything isn't exactly as it appears now, is it? So don't you worry about that. Just continue doing what you do, work, grow, and so on. Because you could very easily say, well, why would I do that? Because I'm just going to die and be a dead person in a coffin or whatever. That's only true for the observer of the dead person in the coffin. the person who is seeing that, not you. There's a very, very different, it could take on a very different meaning. And that's why I think it's very important not to let everyone in junior high tell you how to think about everything, which is just about what has happened.